Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the DucksNPucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard, and we have plenty to discuss. A lot of craziness going on in Duckland. People are not happy. So we will break down some of these recent games, and we will talk about a little bit more trade stuff coming up. The coaching is a big issue, player performance. I mean, all kinds of stuff going on. So plenty to discuss. Eddie, how you doing? How you feeling?
Good. It's Friday. I have a 3-day weekend. Veterans Day is coming up on Monday. So thank you to all my fellow vets that served in the armed forces. Appreciate it. You guys know how much it sucks sometimes, but there's good benefits to it after, like my schooling benefit that I use. So thank you all for that. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Mike. Just want to get this Friday over with from work and then enjoy my nice weekend. My mom's coming down, so I get to hang out with her. And then I'm drinking right now my hot tea because it's in the morning. We're recording at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I need something in my stomach other than beer before we do this show.
Yeah, I'm just having, I changed up. I'm having these Jocko energy drinks that are pretty good, so I'm having one of those this morning. Not a sponsor of the show, but if you ever want to check them out, they're pretty good. They don't really have a crash, not much sugar or anything like that, so I'm having that to get my day started. I got a busy day too on this Friday as we dive into the Ducks. I also want to remind you that we are part of the Old City Sports Network. Check out one of our sponsors, Righteous Felon. They have really good beef jerky. The code is OCSN for a discount, and all our OCSN sponsors are in the description box, so check those out for other discounts. All right, let's talk about the Ducks, man. Just a whole lot of stuff going on in the last week or so. A lot of people upset, a lot of things going on. We'll talk about some of these games. The Ducks went on a road trip where they went 1-2-1. Then they've been home now playing a few games. I'm not really surprised at what's going on with the Ducks, but we had some of these games. We'll kind of dive into them. You had them go to New York and New Jersey, and then also to Pittsburgh. They had a kind of a slow start against the Rangers. Ended up losing this game 2-1. New York got up 2-0. The controversy in this game was a kicked-in goal, and I always feel like this goes against the Ducks, Eddie, every time. Looking at the replay, I'm not really sure why they allowed this. I don't know if it hit the stick and then went in, or if they're claiming it went off the side of the skate, but it was absolutely a kicking motion, and I felt, even though the Ducks didn't play great in the first half, they played okay in the second half. Could have at least salvaged a point out of this game, but I just don't know what it is. I feel like this team, it's been tough winning games, but it's been tough getting calls too, Eddie.
Yeah, well, they played against a better New York team. I know defensively, New York has its issues struggling, but they're a better team. New York should have came out the gate and mopped the Ducks, but the Ducks pretty much stood on their head and hung in there. But you're right, Mike. It seems like every call that we get goes against us. It's just like it never fails. Like, why even challenge a call if it's like 9 times out of 10 it's just going to not be reversed as it'd be called a goal? But it was good to see Zally get his first of the season. That kid is special. Watching him, he's one of the bright lights in his sophomore season with the Ducks. So I love that. So he has a great future ahead of him, and I think he's going to really start blossoming up offensively and really show what he's capable of. So, but overall, Mike, I don't think it was a bad game. I think the Ducks played really well this game. They just couldn't get the win.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're still playing competitive. So I know a lot of people are upset out there. I felt like in this road trip, 3 out of the 4 games were still competitive. And you're right, Zellweger's been one of the bright spots on the team. He's been doing great on the power play. The Ducks' power play's finally getting going here in these last few games. I mean, it's not fantastic, but they're up to 15% efficiency when we were 0 for the longest time. So I think that's a bright spot to look at the team is the play of Zellweger and how he's been doing. But the calls challenge them and whatnot. They don't go your way. And then, you end up, being shorthanded and getting stuck again. So it sucks when you're trying to challenge stuff and get stuff going. Even the Ducks in this game against the Devils, they lost 6-2, but they got the first goal in this game by McGinn And then they just had a really bad second period. They gave up a lot of goals, and they couldn't get things going, and they ended up dropping this one. And we've seen Dostal too, and playing most of these games, just standing on his head. It's been crazy. I guess he knows what it feels like to be Gibson of last season, right? I mean, it's just been nuts. But he's been playing out of his mind. This game was probably the worst one of the four, obviously. I just think it was really more so a bad period. And then, the Ducks rebound from that one and went on to beat the Islanders 3-1. But and then also lost to the Penguins 2-1 in overtime. But I thought overall the Ducks, in these games, Eddie, I didn't think they played that bad. I know people are frustrated, and yeah, you lose 3 out of 4 games, but they had a chance to get a point against New York. They beat the Islanders. They almost beat the Penguins too, if it wasn't for those goals by Crosby in the third period and overtime. So I still see improvement with this team. Of course, it's not where everybody wants them to be at, but what did you think about some of these other games? The Devils was rough, but I thought they played better after that against the Islanders and the Penguins.
Well, the Islanders have been struggling to score goals. They have a bunch of injuries. Barzal's out for 4 to 6 months, I believe, or 4 to 6 weeks. So they're real. They're backpedaling right now. So I was glad the Ducks came out and got a big win against them. They needed that win. The Pittsburgh one, the same thing. Pittsburgh's been struggling. And I was at the bar watching this on Halloween, so it was pretty fun wearing my Ducks jersey and stuff. But I say about this game, I was kind of pissed off that they lost. I thought they were going to win, but the good thing is it's Crosby's final 2 seasons. He's probably going to be done after his contract ends, not this year but next year. So seeing him score the goals, and it wasn't too bad of a thing. Mike, you're a Pittsburgh fan too, so I'm pretty sure you weren't too mad about that. I thought overall Pittsburgh was a really good game. They showed flashes of great talent, each player. Like, there wasn't anything where you had to blame anyone. Like, hey, they lost because of this. Dostal again, just being that Gibson of 2 or 3 seasons ago, that facing 50 shots, facing a huge amount of shots. But I think he's really holding his own and giving the Ducks a chance to win every night. But yeah, that Pittsburgh game was really fun to watch. I think that was my favorite one of the road trip.
Yeah, that one, the Ducks, they were winning 1-0 going into the third period. So I felt pretty good about their chances of at least getting a point. Yes, Crosby gets that goal in the third, and then they had to go to overtime. And then overtime, there looked like another controversial call. It looked like there was a hooking on the play, which then ended up springing Crosby on the breakaway. I thought that I know the refs let him go on that one. I did think that was a hooking call, and it should have been called in that overtime. But the Ducks ended up with a point in that one nonetheless. And that game also against the Islanders, they got the power play going. You had Carlson with the power play goal. You had Terry with the power play goal. I think that it's helping them. They're getting their things going, and they're playing better overall. You had Vetrano got an empty net too in that Islander game. So, it's helped. They've been playing better. And they got points in 2 out of 4 games. They could have got points in 3 out of 4 games on the road. So I wasn't that disappointed. And I think, a couple calls went against the team too. So that didn't help them as well. So that's kind of what I look like on the road trip. I thought that they actually did decent on there. I didn't think it was that bad outside of the game against the Devils, Eddie.
No. You see this team and what they're capable of and what the roster they have in front of them. And maybe I'm biased, but I want to say they have the best pipeline and the best young guns in the whole entire National Hockey League. It's just this team, for some reason, our stars, aside from a handful of players, aren't getting going. I don't know what's going on with them. I don't know if some of them need to be sent down to the A. I'm talking about Cutter more. Cutter, just he can't buy a goal to save his life for some reason. I'm sorry, not Gibson. Zegras hasn't been playing his Zegras self with his flashy style. I did one of the games. I forgot which game he played in, where he was noticeably frustrated, throwing his body around. So I like seeing that passion and fire from him. But other than that, I'm not too upset with this team right now, Mike. I know we talked about this before. We didn't expect this team to come out and be a contender, to be a playoff team, a wild card team. We knew they're going to be in the bottom standings, but some of these games and not seeing our star players perform at the level they should be performing at, that's what's really frustrating. I know a lot of people are mad at the coaching staff. I know a lot of people are mad at the GM. I mean, at this point, who do we blame?
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. A lot of people are talking about the coach, which we have that segment kind of towards the end where people are getting upset about him. All the fan questions we got from you guys were literally about the coach. So I mean, I'll save that part till the end. But you're right. It's now kind of people are kind of looking at this blame game and they're saying, Verbeek this and Cronin this. I've even seen some people saying stuff about the owners too. So I'll reserve that. And I'll put that on the shelf for a minute. As we'll dive into that. It's going to be the hot topic, probably the rest of the show. But I just wanted to finish up too. I think what added to that too, Eddie, is you're talking about who do you blame and whatnot. Is then the Ducks come home and they play Chicago and Vancouver, and they lose those games. They lose to Chicago 4-2. They lose to Vancouver 5-1. They actually played pretty good at the game against Chicago. I was there watching that one live. They were out shooting them 11-2 in the first period, but then Chicago got a couple goals there and took a lead, and then had a 3-goal lead going into the third. And the Ducks fought back, but they got 2 goals, one of them in the final seconds. But overall, that was one of their best games, puck possession wise and shooting wise and everything. And then they end up losing. And then they go into Vancouver. They start out this game good. They score first. And then again, Vancouver, they get 2 goals. And then they just roll and keep getting scoring and end up winning 5-1. So I mean, some of the stuff here I've seen is the Ducks are scoring first in some of these games. They have shown moments of out shooting the other team and controlling the puck. But it's kind of the same team as last year in that part of being inconsistent 5-on-5. With the puck possession. Very good in the Chicago game, not so good in the Vancouver game. A little disappointing there, especially being at home. But we talked about Vancouver, I can't remember which show, a couple shows before the season started. And we talked about them, being a tough team to play against, and that we expect them to at least be in the mix in the playoffs. So I wasn't surprised they lost to Vancouver, but the 5-1 difference surprised me. And then Chicago, that one was disappointing. I really thought the way they started that we were going to have a good outcome in that game, and then we came up short, Eddie.
Oh, I was pissed off losing to Chicago. And of course, Bedard had 3 assists or something like that. He just, I don't know what. Chicago is a shit show too. I thought that was going to be an easy win and we'll cruise through them. Nope, we didn't. We got our asses kicked. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That's embarrassing. You need to beat teams like Chicago. You need to beat teams like San Jose. You can't let them walk all over you. Yeah, I get it. Vancouver, they're a hot team. They have a lot of good players. So losing to them, what they did, that was understandable. But I was more pissed off at the Chicago one. Maybe I'm still pissed off about we didn't get the first overall, and I'm salty. That's why I'm crying and bitching so much. But I don't know, Mike. Just losing to Chicago, even before the first overall pick, always irritates me for some reason. It's like when the Ducks play tonight, when they play Minnesota. I hate Minnesota. I hate them more than the Kings. I hate them more than the Sharks. So any loss to Minnesota will just irritate me more. So I hope we get a win tonight.
I know how much you love Minnesota. Okay, so we kind of broke down the games. Now we're going to go more into the lineups. We'll talk about obviously the coaching stuff. You guys are really concerned about that, rightfully so. A little bit more trade talk too. Before I do that, we've got a few different sponsors through the Hockey Podcast Network. One of them is Game Time. Great deals on tickets. Their website is gametime.co. So make sure that you know that it's not com, it's gametime.co. But it's exciting to watch games live in person. Eddie and I have gone and seen a bunch. Even the Ducks, with whatever's going on this season, they're still fun to go watch in person. It's exciting to see a game, watch it live, see the hits, see the goals and whatnot. So if you want a discount on some tickets, I want you to check out a Game Time. You can take out the guesswork of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. So I'm very excited about that. So check out that app. You can get a good deal on tickets. So So speaking about the Ducks and game time and trying to fix what's going on with this team, that's kind of the theme of this show will be like trying to I don't know if it's really necessarily trying to fix this team, but trying to get this team back on the right track. I think that's been a big issue with this team and why a lot of people are very concerned. And you look at what's going on with the lineup here. The Ducks did do some moves. They sent Luneau down to San Diego, which I thought was the right move. I feel like he's been underperforming, and I think it'll help him out. Gibson is still on the IR, but has been skating. And the Ducks have 22 players on the roster. You know that they can hold 23. So the interesting thing with the lineup right now is what happens when Gibson comes back. You'll have 3 goalies at that point. What do you do with Reimer? Do you try and trade him? Do you send him down to San Diego, but he would be on waivers? What do you think with some of these moves that have happened, Eddie? What do you think the Ducks do? They still try to trade Gibson? Obviously that's been the big talk that seems to never go away. But how do you think they resolve this? Do you think they carry 3 goalies on the roster? They can, but most teams don't do that.
Yeah, I don't understand why they would. And then sending Reimer down to San Diego, you're just taking a spot that another goalie is trying to develop in. I don't think you can get anything in the trade market for maybe future considerations. I don't even think a team would give up a seventh round pick maybe for him. His value is really low. He hasn't the games he's played in. He hasn't really wowed anyone to want him and to want to pull him off even waivers at that point. So I think he'll either get sent down or a trade, future considerations trade. If they hold 3, that makes 0 sense because he's going to be in the press box the whole time. I think you should not really take away games from Doss, but I guess kind of just rotate them to get Gibson's value up there. He's coming off that's the appendix surgery, appendix, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, get him some games in there. Let him show what he can do. And let other teams see that, hey, with the better defense in front of him, he could be a stellar goalie, and that's true. He's a really great goalie. You have teams like Colorado that are desperate right now. They're injury bug right now with Colorado. They're running 3 goalies, and the 3 goalies they're running, they don't really seem like they're playing well. Georgiev barely got 1 goal. It's his first game. He had only let 1 goal against Winnipeg the other night. They're desperate. They need something. You have Edmonton. They're riding on Skinner and Pickard, but you can't ride them in the playoffs. You can't be successful without a successful goalie in front of you. And I think I'm not hating on Gibson. I know some fans hate the Gibson trade talk, but what's the point of keeping 2 goalies when we can get some assets for him and we have a goalie for the future that looks in place that can take, or is the number 1 goalie. He's standing on his head each and every game. He helped the Czech win too. I think he's more than capable of being that goalie for the future to bring us to the Stanley Cup and play well and perform in those heavy situations you're supposed to. So it's only a matter of time of when a trade is happening. And I don't think that I always say this, but who knows? I don't know why they're holding on to Gibson. Like I said, I don't know if Gibson has some dirt on the Samuelis, and he's like, don't trade me unless if you trade me, I'm gonna let this out. But yeah, there's just no point to keep 2 star goalies, especially on a rebuilding team. Like, hey, if you have a player that's overperforming or you can get some kind of value for him, go ahead and trade him. Look at Frank Vetrano last season. I said at every podcast, it was a huge mistake not letting him go at the deadline. They tried to trade him to New York, but that fell through, the Rangers. But I knew it was just kind of an outlier thing last season of how the point production and goals he scored. I knew he wasn't going to come and do that same thing this season. You could have got a hell of a return from him last season. Now you're not going to get that big a return if you try to trade him this season.
Yeah, you hit on some good points there. I'll address the goalie thing. I think you're right. You got to bring Gibson back up, get him in the mix, get him playing, get him doing well again, and then you can trade him. I think with Reimer, you're right. Trying to get any kind of pick for him, you're not going to get much. I honestly think you can just send him down to San Diego and we'll be fine. I don't see anything happening with anybody claiming him. I really don't. You have Callie Klang down there too, so if you had to bring him up or something, but I don't really see that as being an issue. I think that they should send him down, get Gibson back in the mix, and then bring somebody else up to help out in the forward situation. Because as you touched on there, that's been the big problem for the Ducks. It's been scoring. Scoring has been atrocious for this team. They're barely over 2 goals a game. They're giving up around 3 goals against. And, we talked about the potential on this team. There's so many guys that could score 20 goals. And right now, no one besides Terry's doing a whole lot. Well, and Carlson, too. Carlson's got 4 and Terry's got 5. But that's really it. I mean, the outliers are tough. You got Stroman there with 3. And they're not doing much. I mean, Vetrano, as you talked about, McTavish, Zegras, Gauthier still snake bit. Those guys are only accounting for a handful of goals on this team so far, and that's what's hurting this team, is they're not being able to get that production in there with the lines. I do, a lot of criticism on Cronin. I get it. He is trying to mix stuff up. He is trying to change up the lines, so he is trying to get something going. I at least applaud him for that, and I know a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't matter, he's changing up the lines and they're not getting offense. Yeah, I get it, but Eddie and I talk about this all the time and harp on it. Chemistry is a huge deal with these lines, and there's just not a lot of chemistry out there. You can see that they're not gelling well. They're just not getting stuff done. They're getting better on the power play. We have seen that. They have started to cash in on the power play and do better there. I've seen that improvement, but on 5-on-5 play, it's tough. And it's interesting because he's changed up the lines again at practice. We'll have to see if this carries over into the next couple home games here, because the Ducks are on this homestand for the next week or so. But he ended up shifting. So before, he had Fabry, Carlson, and Strome together. Vetrano, McTavish, Terry, Gauthier, Zegras, and Killorn. And then, of course, you have your fourth line with Lundstrom and the other forwards of Johnson, Leeson, again. The practice lines recently, kind of weird, he put Lundstrom up with Carlson and Fabry, and then McTavish down with McGinn, Johnston, and Leeson. So I don't like that at all. That I'm a little bit critical of. I do want him to explore and change stuff up, but I don't know that putting McTavish on the fourth line is really the answer, and then putting Lundstrom with Carlson and Fabry, I don't know. I don't like that. My suggestion was Fabry, Carlson, and Killorn, and then Vetrano and Strome with McTavish, and then Zegras, Terry, and Gauthier. That's kind of what I was hoping that he would go with. But what do you think, Eddie? I mean, you started this discussion about basically with Vetrano, right, with the lack of scoring. But obviously, it's not just him; it's a bunch of the other forwards too. What do you think about these lines? Do you think my suggestion, or you have another idea? Like, how do we jumpstart the scoring on offense?
Yeah, you know what? I like I like dropping down McTavish. He hasn't been performing well, and that's kind of like a little spank. Like you're a kid, you're not doing well, you get spanked. Yeah, send him down. Lundstrom has been playing well. He's not a big point producer, but what he does defensively, that offensive kind of defensive style, he creates chances. There was one of the goals, I forgot which game he played, but he made a really great. He won the faceoff, made a great defensive play in order for I want to say Killorn scored an empty net, but it was all because of his defensive ability when he was playing the puck and taking it and stripping it from someone else and making that play happen. He didn't get the assist for the play, but he was the reason why it happened. I think rewarding him for one of the bright lights of the Ducks this season is good. Me personally, I'd start benching people. I'd start scratching them. I'd make it known. Zegras, you're not playing well. All right, go watch from the press box. Do this. And look at the Boston's coach. He publicly called out Pasternak. He took him out of the game. And it's like sometimes you need to get that tap in the head. Like, hey, get going. Like we can't baby you. There's only so much we can do. Like the offensive started. Like if it takes getting a lighter, it's always some gasoline on it, lighting it on fire to get you going. Then do it. We can't have these players underperforming, especially the ones that we have faith in our future in. They have to get something going. I would send the players eligible too. Send them down to the goals. Like Cutter's not playing he's not playing bad. He just can't buy a goal. So maybe that's helping or kind of messing with his confidence a little bit. Send him down for a few games. Let him get used to scoring down there. A slower pace of a game. Bring him back up and see what happens. It's done before. Suzuki got sent down. And he was mad about that. He came back and he tore it up with the Canadians. He still is. So something has to be done. I don't think making a trade and bringing someone in might add fire. Maybe it might do that if you pick someone off waivers or pick someone off via trade. And some of these guys are kind of potential, might lose their roster spot, but something has to be done. And we get it. This team's still rebuilding, and they're not going to be a number one team. But we need to see those flashes of greatness. We have to see those things of hope. Like, okay, we have a future. Some of these games, Mike, it looks like we're just walking backwards on a treadmill. Like,
Yeah, you do make some good points, because I was thinking about that too, about the Lundstrom McTavish thing, and you kind of changed my mind a little bit. I was thinking it's kind of crazy what they're doing, but you're talking about accountability is what you're getting at, and that's very important, and I think you're right. I think. I mean, I still don't know about putting McTavish on the fourth line, maybe the third line, but you're right. Giving Lundstrom that chance. I mean, we've seen him do well before with like shorthanded goals, right? We've seen him do that kind of stuff, and like you said, he plays solid defensively and then gets those little offensive opportunities. So I could see him like on the second line maybe, and McTavish on the third line. But you're right. Some of the stuff has to change. The other part too is if you send Reimer down and Gibson comes back, you still have another spot. I would bring up Sam Colangelo. He's got 6 goals in 10 games in the AHL, and he seemed to do well in his short little stints that we've seen him in the NHL. I think that's another thing. You talk about sending someone down. Well, also bring somebody up to give them a chance and give them a spark. And I like what I've seen with him. He's been the best goals forward this season. Insert him in the lineup and get some stuff going, because something needs to change. It's not working out. But yeah, there's got to be a shuffle, something. And I'm with you. If a guy's not doing as well and you demote him down on the forward lines, I'm with you on that. How far you demote him down, it's it depends. But another part too is you can do the in-game thing too, Eddie. Like you mentioned, sending players down. The other part is, hey, you don't do well, you bench them for portions of the game, right? We saw that with Cutter earlier in the season. We saw that with Zegras last season. So that's part of it too. That I would look at to try and fix this and get it going. Is still got to find the right chemistry with these lines. I think another question too, some people have talked about is, what are your feelings about Zegras? Do you think Zegras should play center or wing? Right now, they kind of have him slotted in the center position. Do you feel strongly one way or another about that? Do you think switching him around position-wise could maybe help the team and him get going a little better?
God, who knows? At this point, like we mentioned too, the center position has been horrible. I don't know. Can Doss play center? Like, can take a few faceoffs and skate back to his net? Like, or one of the fans, they pull one of the fans, put him on skates and take a faceoff. Hell, I could probably win a faceoff for the Ducks at least, or try to win one. Like, man, it's been horrible.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you look at the center position, I think Carlson's done okay. He's been fine. You talked about Lundstrom. He's been decent too. But yeah, McTavish and Zegras haven't been as great at the center position. So you could change that up a little bit and move it around. And I know that's like what I said that they were doing with these latest lines. So I mean, you can mix it up and maybe go with. They're looking at Strome now, possibly centering Vetrano and Terry. That may work. The way the lineup looks up now is you got Lundstrom, Strome, Zegras, and McTavish. So the thing is I would think in the center position, I would still keep Carlson and Lundstrom in there. You want to throw Strome in there, I'm fine with that. And then I would explore with Zegras and McTavish moving one or both of them to the wing, if possible. I would try to figure out something that would work. I don't know if the lineup would allow you to do both, because it'd be tough. You'd have to get somebody else, because you're looking at Carlson, Lundstrom, Strome, Zegras, and McTavish are the ones that could play center right now. Maybe Fabry if you throw him in there. Maybe he's another one that could play center. So I think that's part of the issue, though, Eddie. I think trying to figure out who your centers are on this team kind of dictates the rest of the way, and that's been the issue. If you that's why I kind of don't like. I like rewarding Lundstrom like you talked about, but I don't know about putting him with Carlson, because I liked Carlson at center. So, or however they're going to flip that. It could be the other way around. It could be Carlson at center and Lundstrom at wing. They can go either way on that one. But I'd rather them be Carlson and Lundstrom be separate, because you're having issues with Zegras and McTavish playing center. That's my thing. I really think the key to figuring out the offense is going to be figuring out who are your four centers, where are they going to play in the lineup, and I think if the Ducks can get that figured out, along with the chemistry like you and I talked about, then hopefully they can get some things going.
Yeah, you made a good point too. Putting both the centers together, maybe that's not the right call, but yeah, I like rewarding Lundestrom for his play. Carlson, that's another bright light on our team. He looks good. I don't remember everyone was mad because we didn't pick Fentali, but I think he's better. He's a better player. I think we made the great choice. I liked his game. He looks comfortable. He doesn't have that sophomore slump. He looks like sometimes some games he looks like a seasoned vet already. So I love seeing that his play style. But something needs to give. And you talked about it too earlier, Mike, about chemistry. You can't be shuffling these lines and having people play with new people every night. You have to find a line that works and let them play together. Write it out if they're not scoring, having a cold streak, but you have to get these players playing comfortable and build that chemistry in that line, and good things will happen. You just throwing everyone everywhere. It's like, yeah, it seems more like a panic move, Mike. It seems like you're panicking. You don't know what to do. You're just like if you ever play NHL 25, the video game, and your team's not performing, it's like you do stupid moves and you throw everyone everywhere. It seems like a panic move more than anything. So this goes back to the coaching and the way they're handling it, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and you know what? We can kind of dive into that too, and we can then talk about the trade talk at the end because that kind of goes into it. But I do want to talk about another sponsor real quick that we have. We still have DraftKings. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck is dropping on the 24-25 season. Get in all the action on DraftKings Sportsbook, official betting partner of the NHL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code THPN, and that's the code that for the new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
All right, DraftKings, another one of our sponsors. Check them out on THPN.
Mike,
okay, yeah.
I guess some gambling advice. If I think on DraftKings and gambling, you can bet on who's going to score. I think there's a thing for that. I would bet if the Ducks are playing any other team, they have a player that previously played on their team, but they're playing against them. I would bet that player to score because for some reason, the New Jersey game, Nolson, I forgot the other player that scored against. Sherwood. Yeah, he scored. Yeah, he scored too. It seems like every player that's played with the Ducks and they start playing against them, they score a goal on the Ducks. So if you're a betting person, go ahead and bet $93 on that player to score. That's a former Duck, and they're going to score. You're going to win. You can shoot us 20%. You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Hate to say that, but that's kind of true. Oh, jeez. Yeah, former players and usually people, new players getting their first goal. That seems like that's always a thing too, right? These rookies that it's their first NHL goal, and you're like, really, against us? Okay, so we kind of broke down the game, talking about like the stats and stuff like that. We'll talk about Cronin now because might as well. It kind of ties into that. Then we'll shift gears and talk about a little bit of trade talk of some stuff coming up, of course. But a lot of you are concerned about Cronin. Beyond all the fan questions, they were like, we had Ducks fan 1 on Instagram says, "What does Cronin need to do to win back Ducks fans?" You see a lot of that on social media. You guys are going off on social media. You have Hey, it's Chris. Why does Cronin keep the same things that don't work? And we'll dive into that. Jacob, page 08. What other coaching options are on the table? What kind of coaching style is good for this team? So, I guess going to the Hey It's Chris thing, I do think he is changing up stuff. But then the question becomes, do you change up too much stuff? Do you panic, as Eddie said? I mean, how much do you change? What do you change? I think you gotta look at this line by line, and I think you got to figure out what your lines are. Like, I do kind of like this Gauthier, Zegers, Terry line. If that's what you're going to go with it. Keep that as a line. Figure out where you're going to put McTavish, and then from there you got Carlson and Lundstrom that I think have been our better two centers on the team. So that's part of it. I think defensively, I think the Ducks, it is what it is. They've kind of been swapping in Vakanainen and Lacombe. There's not really a whole lot I would change defensively. I think Zellweger's look good. Gudis has been fine, but offensively we're just not getting things going. So it's like a happy medium. I think you try to find who starts producing, keep them together, and then you kind of go from there. And I really think Gauthier, Zegers, Terry, you keep that line together, and then you kind of build out from the other three. That's kind of my strategy and how I would look at it. I don't know what you think, Eddie.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what would work. I don't know what's going on with Zegers. I don't know if his social media girlfriend, he's more involved in that. I'm just kidding about that, but I don't know what's going to go to get him going. I thought he was going to have a breakout year, and it's not happening. As far as Cronin too, it's hard to put the blame fully on him. He can only control so much. He can't control the outcome on the ice. He can just play chess and move pieces around. He had success with the Colorado Eagles. And coaching the younger kids, so he's no stranger to that. I think the whole thing too with Aikens versus Cronin. Cronin demands respect and more accountability. I think it was more of a free for all for Aikens. I'm not knowing if that's true or not. Just my speculation on how this team's performing. But you can't just be quick to blame the coach, fire him, and bring someone else in. It's like you're changing up and making this team start from scratch. You're making something. You put the wrong ingredient. You have to just see if it works. The Avalanche, I know their dark days had Bednar as their coach, and they were playing horrible, and fans were calling for him to be fired. These analysts were saying he should be, he might be fired, he might be in the hot seat, but they stuck with him, and look what happened. They won a Stanley Cup. And just keep making. I guess they need consistency, Mike. With the Ducks the last few seasons, it's been inconsistent with how they've been playing, with people coming in and out, with people getting picked up on waivers, but put on waivers, coaching, the GM change. It's everywhere. So I think a little more consistency and give Cronin the chance. Let these players start performing how they're supposed to be performing. Let them, obviously, we're not going to bring anyone to a free agency. It's hard to get people to want to play in California, especially on a last place team or a losing team like the Ducks. So make some trades, bring in some extra help, see which players are going to gel. Right, obviously bring in a centerman, a bigger centerman that can win faceoffs. I think we're a little bit short, minus McTavish. We're a little small on the faceoff circle. Like, we need a player kind of like Getzlaf was. Getzlaf was vicious in this faceoff circle. His big frame, he can kind of bully his way into winning the faceoffs and taking the puck. We need something like that. We need to do something fast. And I'm not saying go out there and trade all your assets just to try to make a wild card spot. Don't put all in. We mentioned New Jersey seasons ago where they went all in on the free agency and it kind of backfired. Look what's happening in Nashville. You try to kind of buy a winning team through free agency and it's not working out. Even their Barry Trotz mentioned too. Their GM was like, hey, well, if we don't start winning games soon, I'm going to go a full rebuild. And that's crazy because they brought in Stamkos and Marchessault, and it goes to show you can't buy a Stanley Cup. You have to grow it within. You have to develop your players and win it that way. So hopefully the Ducks figure something out. I don't think Cronin's might be the issue, but the players, they're responsible for producing on the ice, which they haven't been. And if we do fire Cronin, who do we get?
Yeah, I think that's the question. A lot of people are saying, okay, we get rid of Cronin, bring in someone else. We had fan questions of people asking that too. And you look around, who are you going to bring in? You going to bring back Bruce Boudreau? I don't want to recycle any more coaches. What are you going to do? I don't think there's anybody really out there right now that you could bring in. One I do want to mention, and you can kind of watch him, but I'm curious what Ryan Getzlaf's going to do, because there's been reports out there that he wants to go back and be with the team. Not necessarily, he didn't say in these reports the Ducks, but he did talk about like maybe a front office role. But I wonder if he would consider a coaching role. I don't know if he would want to come back to Anaheim, basically because he's moved to Tennessee now. But I'm curious, something like that. I remember back in the day, people used to joke about Teemu Selanne, and they would say, "Oh, we should have Teemu," but Teemu's living his best life, retired. He's not going to do that. Or Scott Niedermayer or something. I don't know if there's maybe something. Yeah, I mean, maybe if you're looking for somebody like that to come back and do it, that's what I would look at. But I'm kind of with Eddie. I know a lot of people are upset and they're like, "Oh man, we got to get rid of him now," and da da da. I'm like, okay, well, let's look at this. Last year they were 7-5-0 first 12 games. This year they're 4-6-2. It's not okay, a couple wins less, but it's not like drastic. We're not like 0-10-2 or something. I mean, yeah, I'm not happy with the record, but I'm not surprised either. I really, Eddie and I talked about how we thought they would do this year, and people gave us shit for it too, which I laughed. There's people that are always like, "Oh my God, you guys are negative about the Ducks," and I'm like, no, we're not negative at all. We said we think they would take strides and do some things this year. We just didn't think that they would be a competitive playoff team. That's a little bit different. We don't think they're going to be awful, and I don't think they're awful. I just think that they're inconsistent, especially on offense, and that's what they're trying to work on here and trying to figure out. And like Eddie, you brought up a good point. One of the glaring stats on this team that a lot of people don't talk about is faceoffs. The Ducks are at 42.8% winning faceoffs. That's dead last in the league. So something's got to change there. And you mentioned Getzlaf was a beast in the faceoff circle. That guy would go in there and just kick ass. And that's what we need. We need somebody in the center position, not only that can score, of course, that's huge. We've talked about that, but we need guys that can win in the faceoff circle. And that's been a challenge for the team overall. The guys are having a rough time. They're not being able to win those draws. And that makes the game hard. We remember in all those years too, that the Ducks were really competitive. Remember, we had some guy named Ryan Kessler who was a beast in the faceoff circle. I mean, you had the two Ryans in there, and you remember the Ducks were dominant a lot of those years, and that's one stat that I think a lot of people overlooked back then. They were like, well, we had these guys and they were scoring, and they were doing this, and we had Gibson, and we had Anderson, and we had all the Annette, and we had all this. Yeah, we did, but faceoffs are huge. You have to win faceoffs. I mean, you don't have to be in the 60% centile, which is no team is there. But you've got teams like Toronto and Utah, Islanders, Oilers. They're all in the 54, 55 percentile. You want to at least be close to winning half. I mean, the Ducks are barely winning 40%. I mean, that's not good. You're losing 6 out of 10 faceoffs. That's going to kill you. I don't care what lineup you put out there, because puck possession is huge. And you look at the Ducks' numbers in puck possession, they've been in the 43 percentile range for most of the Corsi 4 and Fenwick 4, even strength and in all situations. So that's also a number to look at too, that this team's struggling. But I always look at the faceoffs as a correlation with those puck possession numbers. You win the faceoff, well, your puck possession numbers are going to go up. I mean, that's just common sense. It's just a fact. You're gonna do better, and I see that's where an issue with this team that a lot of people don't talk about. They sit there and they're like, oh, we're not scoring. Yeah, we're not scoring, but we're also not possessing the puck. We're not winning faceoffs. So you're getting behind the curve on that. To me, that's always been, I think, one of the important stats. I think, all the stats are important, right? We're always looking at goals. We're looking at analytics and all this stuff. But I think faceoffs are a key for this team, and they need to do something. Eddie, you talked about bringing in somebody that can win faceoffs, or maybe you start throwing in like Gauthier and Fabry and some other people in the center circle and see if they can win faceoffs, because it's just not working right now.
Oh, no. Something has to change. Something has to give. It's really, really frustrating. I posted on Twitter the other day, too, and everyone's flipping out at the voting stuff. I was just like, hey, I want to vote orange, but this team makes it kind of impossible sometimes. But something has to give. Maybe we look at the trade market and who's available via center. You don't have to bring in a big name, but someone that can be proven to win faceoffs, that's important. There's a player, and I'm having trouble thinking about him, and I think he's retired already, but he was a beast in the faceoff circle. And you mentioned Kessler too, Mike. You know what's funny? Like, I usually go through my jerseys because I like to go through them and see all the memories. And I have 2 Kessler signed ones, and too bad the hip issue derailed his career because he was a beast. Like, the Ducks need. Oh man, that team! I can't believe they don't have a second cup. They should have had a second. They should have beat the Kings that one year, and then they would have went to face New York and they would have won the Stanley Cup. I have no doubt in my mind. But a controversial thing of putting in a young, inexperienced Gibson in that Game 7 was the wrong move. And I'm still crying and bitching about that too. But yeah. Why not give these other players a chance? If you're that low and dead last and you're not winning face-offs, like, okay, well, put someone in. I don't know, put Zellweger. He's been playing really well. Throw him in the face-off circle. See what he does. Put the goalie in. Like I said, anyone. Like, anything to get some wins in the face-off. Because that's, and you said, it's really important winning those things. You win the puck. You get control. You can set up. Especially in the offensive zone. That's huge. But I don't know. It's really frustrating to watch this team. I love the Ducks. And I mentioned to my friend, like, I was planning to go to the game tonight against Minnesota. Obviously, I'm not going to go anymore. I have my mom coming down, too. But she's like, well, why are you going to go watch the Ducks? They're losing. Well, I don't care if they're losing. They can go 0-82, and I'll still go watch the games and have a good time. I love being at the arena and seeing my team play. Sometimes. Sometimes I hate it, but sometimes I love it. But I don't know. I think at this point, they should look at the waiver wire and see who's being on waivers or look for a trade. Bring someone in that can win the faceoffs. I can't see anyone right now being traded. I mentioned Vetrano too, getting sent out from Anaheim, but his value is low right now. You're not going to really get as much as you would have got with him last season. If Fowler's been there a lot too, we've talked, but it's like we need to bring someone in that can win faceoffs and help this team, and that's in a gel and kind of boost the chemistry of this team too.
Yeah, another thing too, we talked about bringing players up. You have Harkins. He only played one game with the Ducks, but he won 57% of his faceoffs. I'm just saying, there's another guy if you want to consider besides Colangelo bringing up. He's also scored a handful of goals too down there. As far as the way the team breaks down right now, you got Lundestrom is just over 50. Killorn's at 50, so maybe you put Killorn back in there. McTavish is at 47%, and so is Fabry. So that I mentioned that earlier about moving Fabry into a center position. Maybe you got to move Killorn into a center position. Zegras is only at 35% winning faceoffs. So I would move Zegras out, move him out to wing. He's not winning faceoffs. He's not big enough. Like Eddie, you talked about. You need a guy that's big. So if I'm looking at the Ducks, I would go Lundestrom, Killorn, McTavish, and Fabry. Put them all in the center positions. They're winning together. They're winning about 49%, which is better than the team overall at only 42%. So, you put those guys in there. Obviously, you'd have to move Zegras out to the wing on there, and then figure it out from there. You could have Carlson. Carlson's only winning 30% of his faceoffs, which is not good. So that's what I would look at. I would put your strongest guys. We talked about the center thing before. Put those 4 guys as your centers: Lundestrom, Killorn, McTavish, Fabry. Fuck it. Put them in there and then build out from there. Some people might think it's nuts putting Killorn in there too, but what are you going to do? I mean, or you can do Strome. Strome's the other one we talked about, which looks like they're kind of playing with. So you could also do Lundestrom, McTavish, Fabry, and Strome. Put Carlson and Zegras on the wing and change it up. I mean, that's just how the stats have looked so far in the faceoff circle. And obviously you don't want to go just by that, but I'm just saying if we're trying to improve this, move some of those around, do something, because it's not working. But in terms of the coach, I know everybody's like upset, fire him, fire Verbeek, the owners, this, that, and that. I don't. Yes, we've talked about it. Cronin is not the long-term solution to this team. He's not the one that's going to bring home a Stanley Cup. He's not the one I think will make this team a competitive playoff team. So in the long term, yeah. But, I mean, you guys asked about who's out there that's got NHL experience. I don't know unless you're going to recycle somebody from the past. So, and it's still early. So, I agree. I'm not happy with the results, but I mean, that's where we're at. So the other option is doing some trades, which I'll talk about that, kind of wind up the show with that. But I do have one more sponsor to talk about, also through the Hockey Podcast Network. I heard of a little company called Raycon that makes a lot of great sound products. But I would check them out because, it's exciting with Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up. You can get an amazing deal you would normally get. But with Raycon, you can get an amazing deal on premium audio every day of the year. That doesn't mean you have to, wait for Black Friday or Cyber Monday. They have a 30% sale right now, site-wide. Sorry. So it's time to save big for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But you can go to raycon.com/THPN today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right, you can get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/THPN. So yeah, check them out. All right, so I guess the last part of this, we'll talk about Eddie is trades. What do we do? And obviously there's more news about trades out there and all this stuff. You had our favorite Frank Saravelli was talking about trades on his podcast recently. He also talked about how he thinks Cronin will be fired this season, but also cites no sources, no surprise. But some of the trade news that comes up, we touched on Gibson a little bit in there. We talked about what do you do with Reimer. There's been more news about Fowler a little bit. They're talking about possibly Detroit or St. Louis being interested. It seems like now that the feeling is if he's traded, it's closer to the trade deadline, which is kind of what you and I had talked about. We had heard stuff that, he might be gone at the beginning of the season. There was that lame rumor that he wasn't going to show up to camp, which obviously he did. So to me, it looks like he could be on the move somewhere closer to the trade deadline. I still think that too. You also had Anthony DeMarco, who's also part of Daily Faceoff. He says that Zegras is available, but the price is too high. Frank Saravelli said, Zegras is always available, which is what he always says. So those are kind of some of the latest rumors about those guys that have been floating out there. I know there's been more talk about Gibson to Colorado. We talked about. They've talked about Zegras going to some of the New York teams because that's kind of his area. But what do you think? What do you think about any of these, Zegras, Fowler, or any other kind of moves that we should do to improve this team?
You mentioned Raycon, so I had to play a song by Ray J. The One Wish song that happens to go what we're talking about, wishing what this team can do better. But yeah, you mentioned the sponsor too. I need some Bluetooth headphones. I have some Beats that I had for years, and my little button fell off, so it's like time to invest. I'm not just reading. I'm saying it because the sponsor, but yeah, I actually do. So it comes at a good time, and I forgot about Cyber Monday and Black Friday. So yeah, I'll be definitely on the lookout for that. And and I had to play the Ray J song since he's a co-founder of Raycon. But yeah, as far as Fowler, I think that would be a good one, Mike. I think it's time for him to go. Change the scenery. He's not the defensive of the future. I can't see him being here when we win the Stanley Cup. He's done everything right for us. He's been a great athlete, professional, a class act, but give him a chance to win. It gets annoying playing for a team knowing that you're pretty much playing for nothing. You're playing for... But you're not playing for anything if you don't play for the Stanley Cup. That's in my opinion. So I think that would be a good thing. I heard Detroit too. I didn't hear the St. Louis one, but I mentioned Detroit. I think that would be a good fit for him in Detroit. It'd be hard to see him in that red though, but yeah, I think other teams might be interested. Come closer to the trade deadline. I can't see him being part of the Ducks after that. Obviously, we're gonna have to eat some of his cap hit up, but I mean, Ducks have enough money to do that. From the Zegras thing is this crazy. And I know half people want Zegras to be traded the way he's been playing. I know other people saying not to trade him. He's not signed long term, so I don't know if we keep him and he might just leave via free agency when he has that time to come up being a UFA. But he has so much potential and the ceiling's really high on him, and the price should be reflect that. I don't want to see the Ducks trade him to a different team and get a huge haul in return, and then he comes out to be a top 5 player in the world, and he just really breaks out with another team. Which it seems like when players leave the Ducks or they get traded to different teams, they have so much success. You can go back from the Chris Kunitz trade. He won three Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh. You can look at Brandon Montour, has been playing. William Karlsson, Shea Theodore. Holy hell, he got an extension with Vegas, and he's tearing it up too. Like, the Ducks should be kicking themselves, and I don't know if Ducks have butts or asses or whatever they call it, and they're behind, but be kicking their little web feet in their ass for some of the moves that they've been making. I don't see Zegras being traded this season. If a trade's going to happen, it's going to be probably the offseason. Unless the team goes out there and offers them a huge return for it. But as of right now, no. I don't think any trade is going to really significantly improve the Ducks at the moment. There's a lot of other issues the Ducks need to work on. I hope they figure it out. They have to figure it out soon, because I know fans, just like myself and you, Mike, are getting tired of this whole retool, rebuild, next year, 3 years, 2 years. No, like, if we want to see progress, we want to see product on the ice. You're over here throwing us inflating prices for food, drinks, tickets, adding 6% charges and everything, but then you're not showing us any product on the ice. So it's like something has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. People are getting frustrated for sure, and I don't blame it. I get it. I mean, we haven't been super competitive since 2018-19. It's been a while now. It's been rough, and like we said, you've got Terry and Karlsson have been scoring, but the potential for so many guys on this team to score 20 goals, and it's just not happening. We talked about those two. Fabry, Vetrano, McTavish, Zegras, Gauthier, all of them we thought have the potential to get 20 goals. You've got at least, 7, 8 guys on this team that can do it. And right now you've only got 2 that'll maybe do it. Or even Strome maybe somehow. He's got 3 right now. So that's what I think, that they've just got to figure out the chemistry, switch it up. Going with this, if they go with this new lineup, putting Strome in the center because he can win more faceoffs is fine. But I think Zegras has to get moved out of there. I mean, you're winning 35% of your faceoffs. Like, that's just horrible. You're winning 1/3 of your faceoffs as a centerman. That's just dog shit. I just don't think he should play center anymore. Put him at the wing. Put him in there. And then throw Fabry in there. So, the way that the last lines were, they had Fabry, Lundestrom, Karlsson, Vetrano, Strome, Terry, Gauthier, Zegras, Killorn. There's a couple options you can do here. You can switch Zegras and Killorn. We talked about that because Killorn's at 50%, but he's not normally a centerman, so I don't know if that's your thing. But maybe you switch Fabry and Zegras. Do Zegras, Lundestrom, Karlsson. Fuck it. See how that line does. And then do Gauthier with Fabry in the middle between Killorn. I think Vetrano, Strome, Terry is not bad either. So, I mean, there's a couple options there to try to go with and play with and see what you can do. That's what I think you got to try and figure out. The fourth line is the fourth line. We already know, like, you got Johnson, Leeson, McGinn there, whatever. I think the fourth line, you're either going to have Lundestrom on there or you're going to play around and throw McTavish on there now. But in terms of trades, I don't really see the Ducks doing a lot of trades. I just don't. I know that there's talk out there. They mentioned Zegras, which I feel like Zegras is just always mentioned. I don't see that happening with him. Fowler, yeah, I'm with you. I see a trade with him some point toward the trade deadline, and that's the big thing. And you mentioned earlier in the show the thing with Vetrano was a big swing and a miss. Now he's not doing much, and the value of him is gone. I mean, you had him last year just going bonkers, and now he's got 1 goal this season. I mean, it's just not cutting it. I mean, you got Zellweger and Minty Kuloff and Brock McGinn and Killorn with all 2 goals. I mean, if you would have told anybody after 10 games that those guys would be in your top 10 of goal scoring, you'd lose their mind. Everyone would, you tell them about Terry and Karlsson, you'd be like, oh, yeah, those guys would be up there. But then if I told you Killorn, McGinn, Zellweger, and Minty were in the top 10, you'd be like, wait, what? And then you've got Fabry and Vetrano, Zegras, McTavish, all with 1 goal. I mean, that's not going to get it done. And Gauthier with none. And I feel like he's been snake bit. His shooting percentage has been up there. It's been off the charts. He's hit the post a few times. It's that old ketchup bottle thing that Teemu Selanne talks about. He gets that one, and then he gets going, and I think that's what they need to do. But that's what I think. I think they just got to figure out. They've got to experiment a little bit more with these forward lines. See what they can get going. You got to figure out long term what you're going to do with Zegras, wing center. What are you going to do with him? how is that going to affect it? And I do like Dostal. Dostal has been, holy crap. I mean, he's been like such a bright spot for this team, playing lights out, making some fantastic saves, keeping the Ducks in these games. Even these games that they lost, going back to talking about that road trip, they still could have beat New York. They could have beat the Rangers. They could have beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. The game against Chicago, they started out well, and they just got behind. But the puck possession in that game was really good against Chicago. They could have had a better outcome in that one. And then, they've had a couple, goose eggs against New Jersey and Vancouver. So it's not all bad. I know a lot of people are just like gloom and doom and holy crap. I don't really feel that way. I just feel like, what is the identity of this team? And I think, Eddie, you and I have hammered that so many times in the last, couple years, is this team has got to figure out what is it? Are we a forechecking team? Are we a, dump and chase? Sometimes we've done that. We got to get away from that, in my opinion. We're not a smash 'em, play hard against team, which I think that's what Cronin and Verbeek have talked about a bunch of times. I think we've seen that at times, right? We've seen that with Ross Johnston. We've seen that with McGinn, Leeson. We've seen that with Gudis. Some of the forwards here and there. Killorn, maybe Carlson, but not as much. We're not as big physically on the forward side, which is why you notice the Ducks, a lot of their draft picks are all over 6 feet tall. So I think that's the key too, is figuring out is our identity to play this gritty, hard team and to try to win these 1-goal games. Because you remember last year we lost a lot of 1-goal games. I want to say it was around 20 games or something like that. I lost track, but there were a lot of games that were real close by 1-goal games. And we haven't really had horrible games other than New Jersey and Vancouver in the first 12. I mean, it's not been all like getting destroyed outside those two. So it's figuring out what's the identity, figuring out the chemistry between these lines. We've thrown out different ideas of what to do. We've talked about keeping this line or moving that line. We've thrown you guys a bunch of options on the show of what they should do. Eddie hit on the point of Cronin doesn't need to panic. I think that's a good point. That's not the way to do it. But I think you're right. If you are going to make a change, maybe you make 1 or 2 changes, ride that out for a couple games, and see how that works. And then give it a shot. Like if you're changing up the lines every 2-3 games, then that's tough. Because now you're, like Eddie said, you're playing with a different person each and every night. And that's tough. So I hope if these changes that he's doing, if he just sticks with it, maybe we take out the Wild and we're able, to win that game and then play some of these other ones, and then the results will come. But I think that's how you got to do it, Eddie. It's not easy. I know everyone wants to just sit there and say get rid of the coach. I just don't think that that's the answer right now. I'm not saying that you don't boot him out later. Depending on how the rest of the season goes, if they go on a crazy 10-game losing streak, then yeah, something's got to change. But I think establish the chemistry. If our mantra or our theme is going to be difficult to play against, then that's what we got to go with. If not, then figure out what our identity is and then go with that. So that's kind of where I'm at with this team. I'm still hopeful. I think that they're going to play competitive games. I still think that they can get somewhere up there in the Pacific Division to 5th, 6th place, and that's basically what you and I said at the beginning of the season. So I really haven't changed my opinion of this team. I'm not really surprised, other than they're not scoring as much, and that's probably been the only part for me so far this season's been like, dang, they're just not scoring as many goals as I thought they would. But that kind of sums up how I feel about the Ducks season so far, Eddie.
Oh yeah, and we're still Ducks fans. That's all that matters. I mean, we could be worse. We could be Kings fans, which thank God we're not. Yeah, we just kind of, I guess, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, because this team's not going to, I don't know. It's really frustrating to talk about this team. And like you mentioned before, we're not just bashing the team or being negative. We're like realists. We're going to tell you what you want to hear. And a lot of our fans, too, they'll talk to us and tell us like, hey, well, we love the fact that you don't just praise the Ducks and put them on this pedestal because they're not right there right now. You made some really good points, Mike, when you went off, and I agree 110% of everything you said, and I probably would have said the same thing too. So I'm not going to kind of reiterate what you said, but something has to give. I don't know, like you said, mentioned giving Cronin the boot later, but I don't know what else to do with this team. I just really hope they trend upwards. We lost two games out of this homestand. We have, 4 more games. Hopefully we get a big win tonight. We need this win tonight, not because of me and my Minnesota hatred, but yeah, something's going to have to give. Johnson's playing really well. I love the way he's playing, and he's playing his role great. I want to mention, too, Kiefer Sherwood is going off with Vancouver. He leads the league in hits. He's getting offensive production on the limited role he's playing. Good for him. I always liked him on the Ducks. He was one of maybe I liked him because his number was 44. That's my hockey number. But I'm glad that he's making it count over there. So yeah, we had to get more. I think we have to beef up a little bit more. Yeah, you're getting like these players too. You know, Mike, I want to mention too, when you're talking, these players that we're drafting, yeah, they're bigger frame, but a lot of these new school players, these younger players are coming in. Look at their hit totals. Their hits are low. I think like hitting's significantly low in the NHL. We need someone that's going to go and knock these players around. Look at Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson's over there banging people around, scoring a bunch of goals, producing offensively and physically. We need someone like that. We need those Getzlaffs. We need those Kesslers. We need someone that's going to come in there and rattle the cage a little bit and make that time and space go away for the other team so we can provide opportunities for us. But all we can do is just keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully this team and some of these players really start finding their game. We need it soon. Like we can't just be every season hoping, or wishing. But no, we need to get back in the playoffs. I miss watching the Ducks in the playoffs.
Yeah, especially with the foul towels and getting all crazy. I totally miss that. That's the best. Playoff hockey's the best, especially with the Ducks. And just to kind of wrap up too, just kind of one last little point before we close out, and you brought it up. You're right about the hits. The Ducks don't have a lot of hits. When you look at the players and you look at the team, they're towards the bottom of the league when it comes to hits. So that's another part of this. If we're going to be difficult to play against and be a gritty team like Verbeek and Cronin talk about, well, we got to start laying the body on people because, yeah, you see Gudas out there just kicking some serious ass on some people, but you don't see a lot of the other guys checking people that hard here and there. But outside of our fourth line, which obviously most teams' fourth line is the one that's going to do it, but that's been the issue. Trying to win face-offs, forecheck includes hitting, so that's definitely part of it. So some things to look at and to monitor and see how they do. But we'll be back. We keep doing the show every couple weeks, covering the Ducks and everything like that. We gotta make Anaheim competitive again. That's what we gotta do. And I think Eddie and I covered some of the things on there to do. So with that, the only thing I would say is check out the Ducks team store. They got new hats in there. I bought some with the new logo. They're fantastic. If you're getting the jerseys, you can get the home jersey on NHL.com without sponsorship logo, at least the home one. And buy sizes bigger, please, because the jerseys run a little small. But other than that, we'll be back in a couple weeks, and let's go Ducks.